thank you for serving. What was your story? Tell me about your story. We always get that, thank you for what you do. And I always respond back, well, thank you for the sport. I'm honored. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like it becomes this natural thing there of like, but I think in a way that by asking people, ask them about their story, will break down that line. If you want to know what's past that, if you want to know what's past that veteran, if you really do, or if you're just, it's the cool thing to say now, like instead of saying cool man or like thank you for your service, I don't know. It's really hard. But I think really seeing the vet is the one thing that I would really like people to do. Really see the vet, really see the guy that's in the wheelchair.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. Hey, it's Veterans Day, and it's a day where we really have a chance to remember folks in our society who've given a lot, have sacrificed a lot, and have really committed their lives to service, in service of our country, in the military in particular. So we're happy here on American Potential to be joined by two veterans as we're traveling in Montana, by the way, just such a beautiful place. But we're happy to celebrate Veterans Day and be joined by two veterans who are going to talk about their way that they're serving after serving the military. I mean, in the past, we've talked to politicians, elected officials who had been in the military and saw that serving in office was another way for them to serve. And there's a number of different ways that folks in our veteran community are serving one another and just serving our communities. But I'm really excited for this conversation. So I want to welcome Lorraine Schleder, so a retired Air Force colonel, and then Dallas Knight, who's an Army combat veteran, both here in Montana, living here in Montana. So we're so happy that you could join us, and I'm so excited for our conversation. First, thanks for your service. In the military, but then, even beyond. So have you both always lived in Montana?
No, I haven't. I grew up most of my life in the Las Vegas area. I moved to Montana about 10 years ago.
Nice. Kind of a different place between Vegas,
very
Montana.
Different place. Yeah. Part of my motivation for moving was just to be in a more family orientated area.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Lorraine?
I've lived my whole life, other than when I was gone 30 years in the military, a small town just east of Billings in Shepherd. And the area was homesteaded by my great-grandparents on my mother's side, about 100, somewhere, not quite, maybe 150 years ago. And then my dad then grew up in northern Montana, in Sumatra, in a small town up there that's just a road sign now. And then he came down to Shepherd when he was 23. So I actually lived on the same farm since I was 3 years old. And then the ranch was out north.
That's awesome. Like a really true blue Montanan. Wow. Yeah. You got some bona fides there. Well, Lorraine, tell me about how you came to be in the military. What did you do? And then, what was your experience like?
Well, I'd been married and I had 4 small children. And one day as did not know where we were on the poverty level and stuff, because I grew a garden, sewed the kids' clothes, and we hunted and did everything like that. And I just thought one day, what happens if something happens to him? How can I take care of 4 children? So my older sister, went into the Women's Army Corps right after high school and did about 3-4 years there. And my youngest sister was ROTC, and she was in the Army. So I got to thinking, well, I wonder if I could go into the military. This would be one way that I could take care of a family. I could get an education and also serve my country, because we're a family of immigrants that came over from Norway and Germany. So we love the country. So that's what started it there. So it basically came down to, if you can do this without costing the family a dime, then you can go to school. So I went into the Army Reserve, where I went and became a combat medic and was 6 months away from my kids, the smallest one being 4 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cried many a night in the bottom of a phone booth talking to them.
Some of that sacrifice we talked about with the veteran community.
Yes, but when you get back home, then I went to college and doing reserve time and got my degree from Montana State right up here at Bozeman, and branch transferred into the Air Force and took a commission and never looked back.
Wow. So you started out in the Army and then transferred into the Air Force. I've talked to some other people who've done that, but it's pretty rare, isn't it?
Well, usually when you get slated in, it all depends on what other services need and if they will accept you in the MOS or the AFSC. That's your duty title of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And being a nurse, they would have taken me in any one of them.
Yeah. Why'd you choose the Air Force? It was uniforms, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I had somebody come up and said that you're better suited for Air Force blue than Army green. Actually, an Air Force recruiter come by at the college there. And I just thought, well, sisters were both Army, what the heck not? And so I just said, I think I really like the Air Force, and I have loved it.
She wanted air conditioning and four-wheelers.
Yes, and TV with remote.
Yeah, and hotel accommodations when areas were subpar. But
I'll share. You can come over anytime. I'll be happy to have you over.
Well, so how long did you end up serving? And I know you were all over the country, right? What was that experience like for you?
Well, by the time it was all totaled up, it was a little over 30 years. Wow. And I first started out, it seems like I always end up saying and get myself into positions where I'm really having to go hard and fast. So as a brand new nursing student, I was in the Air Force's premier ICU unit, the cardiothoracic ICU unit, where we recovered open heart patients. Then I went to flyover in Germany, where you flew into many countries that way, picking up injured troops or whatever and bringing them back to Germany and then further bringing them back to the United States. And then back into the States where I was at headquarters Transcom. That is overseeing all of the transportation for all of the services. And what we did there was I overwatched and helped with patient movement globally. And we oversaw all of that. And I was still flying at the time also.
Wow. I mean, there's just, the military is massive, right?
It is.
So, I mean, I think people, even in if there's not war, which unfortunately there's been a lot of war, but even if there's not, there's people who are injured, just like in a massive city, people who are injured, people who have medical needs. And I imagine it kept you pretty busy. It
did. And I always started out when I was in college, look at the thing that scares you the most and go do it. And never say no to any opportunity. If they say, okay, do you want to go rappelling? Say yes. It doesn't matter how scared you are. They've done it before and been successful. So I'm sitting there going if they can do it, so can I. And with that, you always worry into jobs and then become whatever job or whatever position you're in. Always strive to become the expert in it. And that will take time, but then it forwards and backwards. Mm-hmm. And that leads on to other things.
Wow, that's great. So Dallas.
Yes, sir.
So you grew up outside of Las Vegas. How did you come to join the Army, right?
Well, I graduated high school at 17 and didn't take high school too seriously. Realized I wanted to go to college, primarily because I was pursuing a career with the DEA. And two of the requirements are a bachelor's degree and quote unquote real world experience, whatever that means, right, to them. And I come from a long line of military family. My grandfather served in 3 wars and my uncle was a Vietnam veteran. And I had many older cousins that were all in the military, mostly Air Force. And it wasn't a foreign concept for our family to be in the military, but I was the first woman in my family to join. And so I did just 2 months prior to 9/11.
Oh, wow.
So I really didn't understand the context of what my military career would endure. I, again, was going for the motivation of getting that real world experience and getting college paid for.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, you hear a lot of people who joined right after 9/11 because everyone, was motivated to do it, but you joined beforehand. Mm-hmm. How did things change?
Yeah, I was on a delayed entry program, essentially just meaning that they didn't have a slot for me to go to basic training immediately. So I was set to go to basic training in January of 2002. And so I thought I would fit in a semester of college. like most of us, we all remember exactly where we were on 9/11. I was getting ready to go to class. And I remember calling my mom saying, I'm going to go to war. And my mom's like, no, that's just ludicrous. Like, you're just going to go off to training and you're going to go do your job and you'll be stateside, and women don't serve in combat. Everything will be fine. But I had that hunch. And then I went to training, and I don't really have anything to compare it to, but it felt maybe more serious than what it could have been outside of a war-driven military. Our drill sergeants were preparing kids. I mean, we were 18, 19 years old, most of us, to essentially go off on missions over the seas. So trained in most of 2002, and I found myself in Iraq in February of 2003.
Wow. Yeah, there's some stuff going on in Iraq then. Wow.
Yeah.
And how long were you in Iraq?
Just under 7 months total, with some wait time in Kuwait pre and post. Yeah.
And what were you doing in the Army at the time?
So I was a military police officer.
Okay.
And a lot of people think of that and they think, about our common police in the military, that would be referred to as garrison police, typical like in a patrol car. But I was in a combat unit, and we did convoy security in EPW camps.
Wow. Yeah. And that was some tough stuff there with regard to convoys. And I know that we lost a lot of people in that way. So I think, I've never been in the military, and I have I have a number of family members who had been, but right after me, the kind of the generation just after, when we had Iraq and Afghanistan, just longstanding, really involved wars, it almost refreshed the seriousness and like the sacrifice that's happened, maybe societally. That's at least the way I feel. I feel like people really see it more, unfortunately, see the consequences of, having war and the sacrifices that, folks like yourselves and veterans have made. So how did you end up, so you're serving in Iraq, you come back. What did your timeline look like from being in the Army and then deciding to leave?
Well, after my active duty service, about 4 years, I decided to go into the National Guard in Nevada and became on active duty orders. So there's this kind of like limbo period that you can work. You're not active duty, but you're not National Guard. You're active duty National Guard. Anyway, because
very
you need
creative naming there.
Well, you need full-time people to actually run the guard, even when everyone else is home and only doing their, weekends and 2 weeks during the summer. So I worked for the Counter Drug Task Force though. And I would say that it was kind of like an advanced DARE program. We taught 8th graders the harms of drugs. And I feel like it was way more effective as a military personnel walking in uniform to 8th graders, especially as a woman, these young girls. And I mean, I was 20 at the time, so I wasn't too much older than them. And being able to stand there and give them like a positive role model to, not only share this information, but to stand there and be like, listen, you can, maybe put on the uniform one day and make something of yourself. It was an honor to work. And it was very rewarding in that field. But I was walking down the hall and I heard one of our leaders talking about an intel position opening up. And remember, my whole motivation of going in the military was to work for the DEA. And at that time, I was a new mom, and I knew that I didn't necessarily want to kick down doors and have guns pointed at my head anymore. But I did want to be within that environment of counter drugs. And anyway, my ears perked and I inquired about it. And long story short, the DEA had a National Guard position open in support of their task force. And so I went over, I interviewed with the DEA manager and was accepted onto those orders. And then I came close to my ETS date, and I had told my DEA manager that I wanted to get out of the military. At this time, it was beginning of 2007. Things were starting to pick back up in Afghanistan. And I knew that I would most likely be deployed with my unit. And I didn't want to deploy with a 2-year-old now at home.
Yeah.
So I decided that I would get out. And I asked for a civilian position. And I got very lucky in that about 6 months later, a civilian position opened up. I literally walked out one day on National Guard orders and walked back in the next day as a Las Vegas Police Department employee. Same desk, same mission, same manager, just a different person who was paying my paycheck.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kind of realized your dream too.
Yes. It was a little bit different avenue
Yeah.
of getting there and a little bit different job, but I absolutely loved it.
So I want to talk a little bit. I know you both committed your post-service lives to helping veterans. I guess I'd love to hear from each of you, like, as you reflect on your military service and your time doing it, like, what do you think about? Like, what are you left with as you reflect back upon it?
Wow.
I know it's a loaded question.
It is. It's a big one. When I retired and I came back home, I finished buying the family farm and I was taking care of my dad. And then my dad passed away last year. So I turned over the farm to my youngest son. When Veterans Navigation Network, Mike McManus said, "Hey, come, we want you to apply for this job. Get your resume together and we want to see everything that you've done." That made me dig back into my military records and start going back and looking at it. I know that when I came home, I felt like, we were actually out in the field one day, irrigating. Dad and I were going and he says, "Honey, I think I'm working you so doggone hard on the farm here. I'm afraid you're going to quit me and go back to the Air Force." And I says, "I'd do it in a minute, Dad, but they won't take me. So you're kind of stuck with me." I says, "I miss that going in and becoming very accomplished at something, becoming an expert at something." And he says, "But you are, honey. You're being an expert at running the farm now." I'm going like, okay, this is not quite equating. But when I had to go back and do the resume, I started going back and having to read things in every place that I was to answer the questions that they were asking to see if I'd be the right fit for in their organization helping veterans. And it really made me realize that I have seen and I have done a lot. I mean, I was at CENTCOM days after 9/11, one of the first civilian flights, going down there at the headquarters in what we call the JOC, the Joint Operations Center, sitting at the medical desk, making sure we were evacuating our patients. I was also at the Pentagon at the Joint Staff. And then, of course, nursing and deployed at the bedside, taking care of our veterans, our active duty, our civilians that were over there, also local detainees that were in the prison, and then terrorists and a lot of kids. So you were taking care of all of that. And then you get to see, and me, I'm always like, what's the local like? Where any place that I've ever been deployed. And I start putting that back together, and it was a full life. It was a going life. And I miss it. But on the other hand, I'm going like thinking of getting your gear all packed up and making a move in the middle of the night in sub-zero weather. I don't miss that. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how, when I look back at my career, how it feels. Some days I read things about it and I'm going like, wow, they wrote that about me. And you know that what they're writing is pretty spot on as to what it was. And all I can say is, man, I would really like to meet that girl, because it didn't feel like it was me there that was doing that, but it was. But I can bring that back now for helping other veterans and trying to help get through what they're going through, and knowing that I had a full career and accomplished, and I retired, and I still felt like I walked right up to the edge and then just dropped off. So I know that they have to go from that high intensity of everything that they're doing, and then all of a sudden slamming on the brakes, hitting the wall, and then dropping off. And how can we help you walk through this and get you taken to the next steps and provide that camaraderie that we all felt? There's nothing like being at an airport and looking through a clear shot, and there's one of the pilots that flew your aeromedical evacuation flights.
Yeah.
And it was like old home day again. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So flying a civilian aircraft now.
He's flying civilian aircraft now.
That is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So it was really like, well, how are the kids? Where are they? How big are they? And what's the wife doing? And what are you doing besides flying planes now? And then asking the same here. And, hey, do you remember so-and-so? Have you heard from them? And like I said, it's just, you have that instant connection going back.
Yeah, I imagine there's a real bond and just shared experience, that share, like a really significant shared experience that probably, bonds you for
like
life.
remember the night, the afternoon that our plane broke in Obia, which is like, it's an island out there off of Italy, which is like a playground for a lot of, and it's a really great Mediterranean island. And we were broke down overnight. Yeah, that was a good night with the crew.
That's great.
I was told you can tell if a commercial pilot was in the military by the way they land.
Oh, really?
How do you feel about that? Yeah, they land a lot rougher. That's just get the plane on the ground. That's fine. Commercial jets are usually like and smooth.
Yeah, I've
been testing it when I travel now.
Yeah, you keep doing that because I've seen them that we've come in rather smoothly. And then we were coming into Bahrain on a C-130, and a young lieutenant was flying the plane in. And when we came in, literally the wind caught our wing and flipped us. So we come down the thing, boom, 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 side, back, forth.
Oh, fun.
And we got off. I told the pilot up there, the captain, I says, hey, I wasn't really worried about it because I've seen that landing before. It's on the rescuers when that albatross comes in and he bounces back and forth like that and lost a few feathers. Well, when we went in and took the patients in, did our business and come back out to take off again, I says, hey, where's our lieutenant out? And the captain whirled around, looked at me. He's out there seeing if those were any important feathers that we lost.
That's awesome.
They can get it down. Yeah. They can get it up. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Now, so, when you think back into your time in the military, like, what do you think about? What are your impressions?
I was a naive young woman. I am immediately grateful. It set the foundation for everything that I've been able to accomplish today. I already shared kind of that domino effect of, transitioning from active duty into active guard service to walking out one day in as a, police department employee. And then I pursued a career in, corporate America, being recruited out to be part of a sales team based on the software that I was using there. So it's just been this whole domino effect. And at the base of it is that military foundation. I don't know that I knew that I was looking for integrity and duty and honor and respect and structure, but I definitely needed it looking back. And those values have been instilled down to my DNA level. And I've been able to now pass those on to my two sons. And it's an honor to share those values with them. But, I now see, now that I've gone through my healing journey and still continue that, I see a lot of pain as well that I neglected and pretended that it didn't exist. And that's really my primary motivation for everything that I'm doing today, is to help address that with the veterans who are transitioning out of the military, or maybe they've got out, 20 years ago and have just stuffed it down. I was similar. I did that same thing, and it took me completely falling apart to realize that I needed help and assistance. And sometimes, the worn path isn't always the right path as far as traditional methods of healing. And so that's all kind of wrapped up and brought me to where I am today.
Yeah. So tell me more about what you've been doing to help your fellow veterans and what you've kind of committed your life to now.
Yeah, so I founded a nonprofit called Operation Juliet. It serves the female veteran community. When I was going through my healing journey, part of that was inviting other female veterans to share their story on a podcast. I wanted to give them a safe and secure space where I had already taken that first step of vulnerability and allow them to just document their time in service, because I felt like there were no books, although they're becoming a little bit more common today. But a couple of years ago, I couldn't find books or podcasts or documentaries that were about women who served in combat. And I wanted to give them that space. And through that journey, I started to hear a lot of very familiar things that I had gone through, but I also started to hear them repeatedly across the board. And that analyst brain that I have started to kick in and see these patterns. And these women were sharing, that they had felt invalid or unworthy, post service. And two other primary things really stood out that they were sharing. One, that they had lost their sense of femininity. They'd either not really understood what it was like to be a woman anymore or embrace that femininity. They were finding very hard to get back to that place, which makes sense, right? The military completely trains that out of us, but don't know how to get back to it. And then the other thing, the VA reports very low numbers to what I have been told, but about 80% of women who share with me, they've had some form of military sexual trauma. So these women are pouring their hearts and souls out to me. I, honest to God, started to feel some type of guilt because I didn't want anything bad to happen. I didn't want to trigger them. And so I went looking for resources for these women, only to be very much disappointed. The majority of the things that I found, which there are a lot for veterans out there, but the majority of them are ran and operated by men, and they are centered around some type of masculine activity. Elk hunting, fishing, hiking, biking, and women love to do those things, don't get me wrong, but are any of those things going to be able to put us back in touch with our femininity and embrace what it's like to be a woman again? So that was priority number one. And then when you look at the amount of women who have endured military sexual trauma, and then you say, okay, well, I want you to go to this retreat. It's going to address your, PTSD and other traumas that you have. And I want you to strip down to your most vulnerable state, and I want you to heal from that foundation. But by the way, the person to the left and right of you are men, and the guy leading is a man. They're not going to do it. Right. They'll go and they'll participate, but it's not going to be 100%. So at that point, I kind of just said, screw it, I'll do it myself. And I started piecing together a program that I thought would be beneficial to women, that I knew was beneficial to me. And that was kind of the beginning and the birth of Operation Juliet.
That's fabulous. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world that, men and women have different experiences and process things differently. And so, to say, hey, we need to develop something that's going to be especially helpful to women who've, had a unique experience and had, unfortunately common pain that they've, that's happened a lot. That makes you're kind of like it's pretty entrepreneurial to go out and do it that way. We always think of entrepreneurs, certain businesses, but you're probably doing a lot more good with that. Have you seen, I know you've seen a lot of healing by working with folks. Have you seen kind of that space regarding women veterans, because there's more of them than there used to be also? Have you seen that space kind of growing out and filling out more? Is there a real lack of resources to help specifically women veterans?
There is. I feel like there are more programs popping up around the country with military sexual trauma being spoke about a little bit more openly and honestly. Yeah. So I feel like people are starting to get it. I also feel like, and I'd love to hear Lorraine's perspective on this, we don't always self-identify as women, as veterans, because sometimes, at least in my experience, it's more hassle to try and defend myself and say, I sometimes get looked at sideways when I say I'm a combat veteran. They're like, oh, you mean you were in Kuwait and a bomb landed 3 miles that way? Like, I don't want to spend my energy defending where I was and what I endured, and it's exhausting. So at times it's easier just not to say anything. And so I feel like we're hidden, we hide ourselves, we just don't speak up, we don't say a whole lot. But they're starting to come out of the woodworks when, again, I try to be as vulnerable as I can and put myself out there and lead, if you will, and show them vulnerability is strength. It is courage. The very definition of courage is being vulnerable. And slowly they're starting to come out. And Lorraine's actually been a huge asset and help in the programs that we are leading and trying to, extend our arms to all of our sisters across the country.
Oh, that's fabulous. So Lorraine, I know that you're involved with what Dallas is doing, but tell me a little bit about, when you got out of the military, what you've been doing with regard to the veteran community.
Well, as I said, they asked me to come be part of Veterans Navigation Network, and that was founded by Blake Furman, who, when he came home after a deployment, walked into a house that had a bed frame and a can of tomato soup. That can of tomato soup is, kind of like, we laugh about that. Don't know why that was left. But as he was then transitioning out, he had a parachute jump and it had fractured his back. And he was taking care of it within the military and stuff. And then he got out. And when they started filing for disability and trying to get the benefits that he had, it was no. It took him over 3 years. Oh. And so he was talking to a guy. He says, yeah, I'm a Vietnam vet. And he says it took 3-4 years before the VA would acknowledge the fact that, yes, I have been injured and it was during my time. And he says, if that was what was going on in Vietnam and now here we are up here, there's not much progress that's been made. So he started reaching out, helping veterans. The first ones he met in parking lots, in coffee shops, wherever it was. If someone said that they were going to harm themselves, commit suicide, he stayed with them, get them through that. And then he brought Mike McManus on, and then that's when they started getting bigger. And we have also Mike Foose, who goes into the court system for those vets that come back that don't know how to handle things and do the self-medication with alcohol, drugs, and then get caught or in trouble. Mm-hmm. And we try to get them on what we call camo court and get them back on a veteran track and get them healthy, get them the help that they need, and start doing that. So I've come on as part of doing that, finding these veterans for whatever they need, finding peer mentors for them. We hold all kinds of classes for them. And it is very helpful, both working with Dallison and her organization, seeing that aspect and knowing that, okay, why don't you go and hook up with Operation Juliet? This would be a great female asset for you to get into with these guys here, because they go through a lot of what you're going through. Or, oh, you have family, wife, children, and you're dealing with this. How about going out to do horses spirits healing, which is horse therapy out there, and finding these ways to reach out to these vets and bring them in. So just as even I'm driving up here, my work phone, I'm going like, sure, step away from the office, and there's 3 calls on there that I got to respond to immediately. And I get all kinds of calls. And the big thing that the asset that I bring on is that they've quickly learned that when they confuse us with helping them find the veteran resources with VA medical. So when all of a sudden VA medical, they're coming looking for us, they tip them over to me. Being medical, I can help walk them through and get them back over in this VA line and help them kind of walk through that. The other thing too is that when they get a record in and they're going like, I'm not seeing how this injury is stacking up, they'll hand it to me and I'm going like, oh, it's a perfect clear line to me. I see it medically. And so that helps contribute. And I get to use what I was trained for. I get to use that expertise, but I also understand because I've been deployed. I have been over there. I have been in those positions that you see, and I'll just tell them, yes, I've been in places that, okay, Lorraine, you're going from Saudi Arabia, you're going back over to the headquarters at Qatar, be on that C-130 and make your way over there. Okay. So you get on the 130 with your bags and you land, and all it is just desert everywhere around you. You go into the shack and you say, okay, I'm supposed to be getting to Qatar. They go, oh, that whole pallet of luggage and baggage over there, that's headed to Qatar. So I'm exhausted after flying all night long. So I go and sleep on top of that luggage, knowing it's got to go where I got to go. Right. So I don't know where I'm at, but I know I'll get there if they wake me up with the luggage. And that's pretty much what they did. They wake me up. I get on the next plane. I make it over there. So yes, sometimes you can look at them and say, I understand. You do not know where you're going right now, but that's okay. We know where you're at. And we'll take these steps to get you where you're going. So we've got you. We'll help walk you through this. And I think that's the biggest thing that you can do is I'm helping our fellow vets navigate through a terrain that maybe they haven't done. And I've kind of done that, whether it's within the ICU saying, hey, I've got your 6. We've got you. I'll take care of you. And you sometimes you look up and you just see big old tears coming down, knowing like, okay, I'm in a safe spot. I can breathe now again.
So I have 2 questions for both of you for our remaining time. One of them is, what do you, if you could wave a wand and have something change or be augmented for veterans in America, what change would you make?
Oh, we're going to talk VA policy now?
Oh, we don't have to.
I
would go too.
No, if I could wave a magic wand, instead of all the loopholes that you have to go through with VA healthcare and approvals and wait lists and community care versus this, that, and the other, like just give me a card, kind of like an insurance card, and allow me to pick the healthcare that suits me best and that I get benefit from. And sure, give me an allowance every year. And if I go over my allowance or need more than that, have a provider justify why I need more. But allow me choice, allow me the freedom to make those decisions on behalf of myself and stop making it so damn hard.
Yeah, we've had a lot of folks who, from our sister organization, Concerned Veterans for America, have come on this show. And this has been a mission of theirs for 8 years or more. And it's just, every time I get exasperated because I'm like, what? These are the people who served our nation.
Yeah.
Often were injured in service to our nation, and they're battling in a way that I don't have to, just working for a private company. And there's a lot of frustration there. So I hear what you're saying. And Lorraine, what would you do?
Well, first off, I have to make this statement. Nonprofits are filling the gap. They're the ones that are out there getting the job done. I would like to see more resources towards just that healthcare type of being able to have that card of, like Dallas is talking about, that you get the healthcare that not what you need, not what the system is built within their blocks. Well, I'm sorry, we only have this within our blocks. We only have this within our blocks. And I'd like to see that. The other thing that I would really, 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 really like to see, especially here in Montana, because we have a real, just because of our altitude, our solidarity, and our long winters and everything else, we need more resources and more education for everyone about suicide. And it's not the fact that you ever say, oh, do you feel like harming yourself? No, you ask them, are you thinking about committing suicide? We have found out through research that you just hit this head on and you get where they are, and you don't go in there and try to start doing things with them, but we need to have more education about the new suicide preventions that are out there. I think for me that's the hardest, because I've spent a whole career keeping people alive and literally sitting there over someone saying you're not going to die until I say you're going to die, and you're not going to die. And now we come back here and we have such a need right there. That would be the one thing that I would really, really like the whole nation to just become experts at what it is, and that's helping family and others, and have the money and the resources to be able to do that. So, because right now everybody wants to talk about it, but I'm sitting there going like, oh, we support it. And I just want to say, and tell me how you're doing that.
It's so important. I mean, it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I talked to, like I mentioned, folks from Concerned Veterans for America, and just the breadth of the problem, the number of people who have died that through suicide is just breathtaking, and it's such an unbelievable tragedy.
Right. Such a waste.
Yeah. So it's Veterans Day. We're honoring veterans. We're both veterans who are serving veterans, post your military service. So there's a theme going on here. What's something that you would love, like the American people who didn't serve in the military? What's something that you would like them to know about veterans or the veteran community generally? And maybe I'm painting with a monolithic brush here, because obviously there's a lot of difference. So you can even pick little gradations.
You said something earlier when we were chatting about, or maybe this was an earlier conversation. It's been a long day. I will start organically. I would say don't be afraid to ask a veteran what their story is. I think sometimes we can just be very passive as civilians, and acknowledgement appears to be enough. You meet a veteran however you may, but if you have a couple minutes, just a couple minutes, instead of just, the blanket statement of thank you for your service, maybe just ask them what their story is. And I say it like that because it's kind of an open-ended question. It's not invasive, and the veteran will feel inclined to share as much or as little as they want, but it will also help them feel heard and seen and a little bit more understood.
That's great. Yeah. Lorraine.
Wow. I'm supposed to follow that.
She's right.
She's absolutely right. I myself even do that when you see a veteran wearing a hat or something like that. And, just, well, thank you for serving. What was your story? Tell me about your story. We always get that, thank you for what you do. And I always respond back, well, thank you for the sport. I'm honored. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like it becomes this natural thing there of like, but I think in a way that by asking people, ask them about their story, will break down that line. If you want to know what's past that, if you want to know what's past that veteran, if you really do, or if you're just, it's the cool thing to say now, like instead of saying cool man or yeah, like thank you for your service, I don't know. It's really hard. But I think really seeing the vet is the one thing that I would really like people to do. Really see the vet, really see the guy that's in the wheelchair that has that slapped over Vietnam hat or World War II hat or, right. Korean or whatever it is. At one time they were young, they were vibrant, they were alive, and try to see that part of that person there that gave his all for his country at a certain time. They do have a story, and it is important to know that where you are today is because of where they were then.
Mm. Wow. Well, I'm so glad you guys shared your story with us here on Veterans Day. So as we kind of sign off, tell us how folks who are listening can find out about the work you're doing right now, like at Operation Juliet. Like, where can they find you?
All over the place, but operationjuliet.org is a perfect place to start, but we are on all the social media platforms as well. And so, come check us out.
Great.
Same way there, Veterans Navigation Network. You can put that in there, and it's a .org also, and it will pop up. We have a Facebook presence and then just a website also.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me and our listeners about your story and what you're doing now to continue your service. I actually made a mental note. Like when I see a guy with a hat on, I'm going to ask him for a story. Cause I love those stories.
Yeah.
And I'm usually like, I travel a lot. So I'm like the guy at the airport who's got my earbuds in. I'm like, but that'd be pretty magical. I'd love to hear some of those stories. They're probably fascinating.
Yeah,
they are. They're wide and varied.
Well, thanks for all you're doing right now and certainly what you did. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Folks, if you like this episode and would like to stay connected, be sure to like us and subscribe on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And always remember, freedom and liberty can easily be taken for granted. Don't take it for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.